My name is Clara Bennett, and at 38, I've built a life I'm proud of running a small organic produce store in Des Moines, Iowa. But to my family, I'm just the spinster sister who doesn't get it. The pale blue envelope on my counter felt like a punch to the gut, its silver script screaming my brother's smugness. Join us to celebrate our little miracle, it read, because family is everything, something some of us choose to ignore. I tossed it down my fingers, trembling. That's my brother, always ready to jab at my empty life. He's got no clue I've been the one keeping his world from collapsing. And yet, here's another invite to his perfect little baby shower, where I'll sit through more lectures about how I've failed as a woman. If it were you, how would you react to a heartless brother like this? Comment below and let us know. The afternoon sun was dipping low when I pushed open the door to the cozy book cafe across from my store in Des Moines. My best friend was already there, perched on a stool by the counter, flipping through a worn paperback. Her coworker, a guy who'd been helping out at my shop lately, was wiping down tables nearby. I slid into the seat across from her, my shoulders heavy. I can't stop thinking about that invite, I said, my voice low. She put the book down, her eyes narrowing. Your brother's got a gift for making you feel small. What's the deal with him? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. It's not just him, it's Mom too. They act like I'm wasting my life because I didn't pop out a kid or snag a husband. My friend snorted, tossing her hair back. They're living in the Stone Age. You run a business, Clara. You're not exactly sitting around. I gave a bitter laugh, my fingers tracing the edge of the table. Try telling them that. For 3 years, I've been bailing my brother out and he doesn't even know it. Her eyebrows shot up. Wait, what, bailing him out? How I glanced around the cafe, making sure no one was listening. The guy from my shop was out of earshot, stacking chairs. I lowered my voice anyway. 3 years ago, my brother was drowning in debt. His house was about to be foreclosed. I found out through a friend who works at his bank. He never asked for help, too proud, I guess. So I started transferring money to cover his mortgage. Anonymously, thousands of dollars every month straight from my savings. Her jaw dropped, the book forgotten in her lap. Clara. That's insane. You've been paying his bills? And he has no clue. I nodded, my chest tightening. I didn't want him to lose everything. He's got a wife, a kid on the way. But instead of gratitude, I get called a spinster, who doesn't know what family means. The guy from my shop walked over, catching the tail end of my words. Your brother sounds like a piece of work, he said, setting a coffee mug in front of me. Why keep it a secret? Tell him and shut him up. I shook my head, stirring the coffee absently. It's not that simple. If I tell him, he'll twist it, make it about his pride. And Mom will just say I'm showing off. My friend leaned in, her voice sharp. Clara, you're letting them walk all over you. You've been their safety net and they treat you like dirt. I opened my mouth to argue, but my phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up with Mom's name. I groaned, showing it to them. Here we go. I hit the speaker button, holding the phone between us. Clara, honey, Mom's voice chirped, all fake warmth. I was just telling your brother's wife how excited we are about the baby shower. It's going to be perfect. You're still coming, right? I clenched my fists under the table. Yeah, Mom, I said I'd be there. She didn't miss a beat. Good, good. You know your brother's doing so well. He's got a family, a real purpose. I just wish you'd think about settling down, Clara. You're not getting any younger. My friend rolled her eyes, mouthing something I couldn't catch. I forced a tight smile, even though Mom couldn't see it. I'm fine, Mom. Really. She sighed, long and dramatic. I just want you to be happy like your brother. He's giving me a grandchild, Clara. That's what family's about. I bit my lip, the words stinging more than I'd admit. I've got to go, Mom. I hung up before she could say more. My hands shaking. My friend reached across the table, squeezing my arm. She's unbelievable. They both are. The guy from my shop leaned against the counter, his arms crossed. You've been carrying them, Clara, and they don't even see it. I stared at the coffee, the steam curling up like my anger. I've spent years keeping his life together. Thousands of dollars gone just so he could play the perfect son. And Mom eats it up. My friend's eyes glinted with something fierce. You need to stop hiding it. Let them know what you've done. Let them choke on it. I looked at her then, at the guy, their words sinking in. The idea of exposing the truth was terrifying, but it was starting to feel right. Maybe you're onto something, I said, my voice steadier. Maybe it's time they faced what I've been carrying. My friend grinned, raising her coffee mug like a toast. That's the spirit. Hit them where it hurts. The guy nodded, his expression serious. You've got the receipts, Clara. Use them. I took a deep breath, the weight in my chest shifting, not gone, but different. For the first time, I wasn't just angry, I was ready to do something about it. The next evening, I pulled up to Mom's house in a quiet Des Moines neighborhood, the familiar porch light casting a warm glow that felt anything but welcoming. I adjusted my sweater, took a deep breath, and stepped inside, the smell of her signature pot roast hitting me as I crossed the threshold. My brother was already there, sprawled on the couch, his wife perched beside him, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. Mom bustled out of the kitchen, her apron dusted with flour, beaming at them like they were royalty. "Clara, you made it?" she exclaimed, but her eyes flicked over my outfit with a familiar frown. "You could have dressed up a little, dear." I forced a smile, sliding into a chair at the dining table. "Good to see you too, Mom." My brother glanced up from his phone, his smirk sharp enough to cut. "Nice of you to show up, Clara. Thought you'd be too busy with your, what, kale empire?" His wife nudged him, but her smile was thin, more polite than genuine. I gripped my fork, the metal cool against my palm, and ignored the jab. "Just keeping the lights on," I said, keeping my voice even. Mom set a steaming dish of roast on the table, her chatter filling the air. "Your brother and his wife have been so busy planning the nursery. It's going to be perfect for the baby." She reached over, squeezing his arm. "I'm so proud of you too." Her gaze slid to me, softening, but not in a good way. "Clara, don't you ever think about settling down? You're 38. Time's ticking." I stiffened in my chair, my appetite fading. "I'm happy with my life, Mom. My store's doing great." She sighed, shaking her head like I'd missed the point. "A store's not family, Clara. You'd understand if you had someone special." My brother leaned back, his grin widening. "Yeah, Clara. Maybe if you didn't spend all your time selling carrots, you'd have a life like ours. You know, one that actually matters." His words landed like a slap, and I felt my face heat up. His wife looked down at her plate, her fork pausing mid-bite. I opened my mouth to fire back, but the doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Mom jumped up, wiping her hands on her apron. "That must be your brother's friend from the bank. She's joining us tonight." A woman stepped in, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, a bottle of wine in hand. She flashed a bright smile, shaking hands with Mom before turning to my brother. "Good to see you," she said, her voice warm but professional. She nodded at me, her eyes lingering a moment. "You must be Clara. I've heard a lot about you." I managed a tight nod, unsure why her look made me uneasy. We settled around the table, the clink of glasses and small talk masking the undercurrent of tension. As Mom served the roast, my brother launched into a story about his latest project at work, his voice loud and self-assured. "We're killing it," he bragged, cutting into his meat. "Closed a big deal last week. Things are looking up." His friend from the bank nodded, sipping her wine. "Speaking of that," she said casually, "I noticed a big deposit in your account recently. Must have been a nice bonus." My heart stopped, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. My brother frowned, confused. "What deposit? I didn't get any bonus." His friend blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, I just assumed. It was a pretty large sum. Came through a few months ago." I felt every eye at the table shift, the air growing thick. My brother's frown deepened and he set his knife down. "What are you talking about? I'd know if I got money like that." His friend hesitated, glancing at me for a split second before looking away. "Maybe I got it wrong," she said quickly, "but the damage was done." My pulse raced, my mind spinning. She knew something, maybe not everything, but enough to make me nervous. I'd been so careful routing the money through anonymous transfers to save his house. Had she traced it back to me? Mom broke the silence, her voice overly cheerful. Well, let's not get sidetracked. Clara, have you thought about what I said? About finding someone I swallowed hard, pushing my plate away? Mom, I'm not here to talk about my love life. My brother snorted, leaning forward. What love life? You're married to your shop, Clara. No wonder you're always so uptight. His wife shot him a look, but he ignored it, his smirk back in full force. Maybe if you had a kid on the way, you'd get why we're so excited about the shower. I clenched my jaw, my nails digging into my palms. Not everyone's life revolves around kids. I said, my voice sharper than I intended. Mom gasped like I'd insulted her personally. Clara, that's not fair. Your brother's building a family. It's what people do. I stared at her, the words I wanted to say, burning in my throat. I'd been keeping his family afloat and he was mocking me for it. But I couldn't say it, not yet. Not here. The bank friend's comment still hung in the air, a ticking bomb I wasn't ready to detonate. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of forced smiles and half-hearted small talk. My brother kept up his jabs, each one cutting deeper, while Mom piled on with her not-so-subtle hints about my wasted life. His friend stayed quiet, her earlier slip seeming to weigh on her. As I pushed back my chair to leave, Mom grabbed my hand. Think about what I said, Clara. You deserve to be happy. I pulled away, my voice cold. I am happy, Mom. You just don't see it. My brother laughed, a low, mocking sound. Sure, Clara. Keep telling yourself that. I stepped out into the cool night air, my heart pounding, the bank friend's words echoing in my head. She'd seen something, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my secret was slipping out of my control. The next morning, I was back at the shop arranging crates of fresh apples when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I opened it, my heart pounding. Clara, it's your brother's friend from the bank. We need to talk. Can you meet me at the shop? I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. She knew something, and I wasn't sure how much. I texted back telling her to come by in an hour, then called my best friend. Get over here, I said, my voice tight. Something's up with my brother's bank friend. She promised to grab the guy who helps at the shop and be there soon. I paced behind the counter, my thoughts racing. Had she figured out I was the one sending the money? If she told my brother before I was ready, my whole plan, whatever it was, would fall apart. An hour later, the bell above the shop door jingled, and my brother's friend walked in, her face serious. She wore a crisp blazer, her hair pulled back, looking every bit the banker. Clara, she said, her voice low, I didn't mean to stir things up at dinner, but I saw the transfers to your brother's account. They're from you, aren't they? I froze, my hands pausing on a crate. What makes you think that? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She stepped closer, her eyes steady. I've been at the bank long enough to recognize patterns. Anonymous transfers every month covering his mortgage. They trace back to an account tied to this shop. I leaned forward, my voice barely a whisper. You can't tell him? Not yet. She raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. I won't. But you need to decide what you're doing, Clara. He's walking around acting like he's got it all together while you're carrying his weight. Her words hit hard, echoing what my friends had said yesterday. I nodded, my jaw tight. I'm working on it. She hesitated, then added, whatever you do, make it count. He doesn't deserve to keep you in the shadows. She left without another word, the bell jingling behind her. Minutes later, my best friend burst through the door, the guy from the shop trailing behind her. What's going on? She demanded, tossing her bag on a chair. I motioned them to the back room away from customers. My brother's friend knows, I said, shutting the door. She figured out I've been paying his mortgage. My friend's eyes widened and she let out a low whistle. That's a bombshell. What's your move? The guy crossed his arms, leaning against a shelf. You've got to tell him, Clara. At the baby shower. Hit him where it hurts. I paced the small room, my shoes scuffing the floor. I've been thinking about that. If I just tell him, he'll spin it, make me the bad guy. I need something bigger. My friend grinned, her eyes glinting. Like what? A PowerPoint of every dollar you've spent on him. I stopped her words, sparking an idea. That's not a bad idea. A presentation. Show everyone at the baby shower exactly what I've done. The guy nodded, his face serious. You've got the evidence right. Bank statements, transfer records. I pulled a folder from my desk stuffed with 3 years of receipts. Every transfer, every payment. I kept it all. My friend flipped through the pages, her jaw dropping. Clara, this is thousands. You've been bleeding yourself dry for him. I shrugged, the weight of it settling in my chest. I thought I was helping family, but they don't see me as family, just the spinster who doesn't get it. The guy shook his head, his voice firm. Then, show them. Make it impossible for them to ignore. We huddled around my laptop, sketching out the plan. My friend took charge, her fingers flying over the keys. We'll make a slideshow. Start with a photo of their house, then flash the numbers, dates, amounts, the whole deal. I nodded, adding, make it simple, but brutal. I want every guest to see what I've done. The guy suggested a timeline, laying out each payment like a story. End with a screenshot of the last transfer, he said. Let it sink in that you saved their home. As we worked, my phone buzzed again, this time, a voicemail from Mom. I played it on speaker, her voice filling the room. Clara, I hope you're bringing something nice to the shower. Your brother's wife worked so hard on it. Don't let her down. I rolled my eyes, deleting the message. My friend snorted. She's got no idea what's coming. I felt a surge of resolve, my hand steady for the first time all day. They've pushed me too far. This isn't just about the money, it's about making them see me. We spent the next hour refining the slideshow, choosing fonts that were clear and sharp, nothing flashy. My friend added a final slide, just one line. 3 years. Thousands of dollars. From Clara. That'll hit them like a truck, she said, grinning. The guy tested the file on a USB drive, making sure it would run on any projector. You're sure about this? He asked, his tone careful. I met his eyes, my voice unwavering. I've never been more sure. They've mocked me long enough. By the time we finished, the shop was quiet. The morning rush long gone. I looked at the USB drive in my hand, the weight of it heavier than it should be. My friend squeezed my shoulder. You're doing the right thing, Clara. They need to know. I nodded, my resolve hardening. For years I'd stayed silent, letting my brother and Mom walk over me. But at that baby shower, I'd make sure they couldn't look away. 2 days later, I walked into the baby shower at a sleek Des Moines restaurant, the USB drive burning a hole in my pocket. The room was decked out in pastel balloons and banners, the air buzzing with chatter and laughter. My brother and his wife stood at the center, basking in the glow of their guests' adoration. Mom hovered nearby, her smile wide as she handed out slices of cake. I scanned the crowd, spotting my brother's friend from the bank near the bar, her expression unreadable. My best friend and the guy from my shop were already there, stationed near the projector we'd tested that morning. I gave them a subtle nod, my hands shaking as I clutched the USB. His wife took the microphone, her voice bright. Thank you all for coming to celebrate our little miracle. The crowd clapped, and my brother draped an arm around her, grinning like he owned the world. Mom caught my eye, mouthing, "Behave," as if I were a child about to throw a tantrum. I ignored her, my focus on the projector screen behind them. My best friend leaned over, whispering, "You ready?" I nodded, my throat tight. "Let's do this." As the applause died down, I stepped forward, my voice steady, despite the nerves clawing at my chest. "I have something to share," I said, loud enough to draw every eye. My brother raised an eyebrow, his smirk familiar. "What, Clara? A speech about kale." A few guests chuckled, but I didn't flinch. I walked to the projector, plugged in the USB, and hit play. The room went silent as the first slide appeared, a photo of my brother's house, pristine and paid for. "This is my brother's home," I said, my voice carrying. 3 years ago, it was about to be foreclosed. Whispers rippled through the crowd. My brother's grin faltered, his eyes narrowing. His wife glanced at him, confused. The next slide showed a bank statement, my shop's account number redacted, but the transfers clear, thousands of dollars month after month to his mortgage. "I paid it," I said, my gaze locked on him. "Every cent, for 3 years. While you called me a heartless spinster who doesn't know what family means." The room erupted in gasps, guests turning to each other, their murmurs growing louder. My brother's face turned ashen, his mouth opening but no words coming out. Mom dropped her plate, the cake hitting the floor with a soft thud. "Clara, what is this?" she stammered, her voice shaking. I clicked to the next slide, a timeline of payments, each date and amount stark against the screen. "This is what I've been doing," I said. "Saving your golden boy's life while he mocked mine." His wife stepped back, her hand on her belly, her eyes wide with shock. "You did this?" she asked, her voice barely audible. I nodded, my chest tight but my resolve firm. "I didn't want you to lose everything. But I'm done hiding it." My brother finally found his voice, his face red. "This is a lie. I didn't ask for your money." I clicked to the final slide, a screenshot of the last transfer dated a month ago. "You didn't ask," I said. "But you took it. And you never even thanked me." The crowd was in chaos now, some guests whispering furiously, others staring at my brother like he'd grown horns. His friend from the bank stood frozen, her wineglass trembling in her hand. An older woman, my Aunt Mom's sister, pulled out her phone, her fingers moving fast. I caught her eye, and she gave me a small, approving nod. I turned back to my brother, stepping closer, my voice low but cutting. "You called me heartless. You said I don't get family. But I've been holding yours together for years, and all I got was your smug insults." He stumbled back, his hands raised like he could push the truth away. "Clara, you're making this up to ruin me," he shouted, but the guests weren't buying it. A woman near the front shook her head, muttering, "That's low." Another guest, a guy I recognized from their neighborhood, crossed his arms, glaring at my brother. Mom grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Clara, stop this. You're embarrassing us." I pulled free, my eyes never leaving my brother. "No, Mom." He embarrassed himself. Every time he called me a failure, he was living off my money. His wife's face crumpled, tears welling up. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked him, her voice breaking. He turned to her, his hands shaking. "I didn't know, I swear." But the doubt in her eyes was clear, and the crowd's murmurs grew louder, a wave of judgment crashing over him. I stood tall, the weight of years lifting off my shoulders. "You don't get to play the victim," I said to him. "You don't get to call me names while I save your life. Not anymore." A slow clap started from the back, my best friend, her grin fierce. The guy from my shop joined in, then a few guests, their applause sharp and pointed. My brother's face burned, his eyes darting around for an escape. Mom was crying now, her hands covering her face. "Clara, how could you?" she whispered. I looked at her, my voice steady. How could you let him treat me like I'm nothing?" The room felt electric, every guest hanging on my words. My aunt was still recording, her phone aimed at us, capturing every second. I stepped back, the slideshow looping behind me, each slide a nail in my brother's facade. I'd spent years in the shadows swallowing their insults, but now they saw me, really saw me. My brother's friend from the bank approached, her voice low. "You did the right thing," she whispered. I nodded, my heart still racing but lighter. The truth was out, and there was no going back. Right after I stepped outside the restaurant, the cool Des Moines air hitting my face as the noise of the baby shower faded behind me. Inside the room was still buzzing, the slideshow looping on the screen, each slide a reminder of the truth I'd laid bare. My brother's voice broke through the murmurs, loud and desperate. "This isn't what it looks like," he shouted, pushing through the crowd toward me. I turned, my arms crossed, ready for whatever he'd throw next. He stopped a few feet away, his face flushed, his tie loose. "Clara, you can't just humiliate me like this," he said, his voice cracking. "I didn't know it was you. Why didn't you tell me?" His wife appeared behind him, her eyes red but her expression hard. "You should have known," she said, her voice low and sharp. "Someone was saving us and you never even questioned it." The guests nearby fell silent, their eyes darting between us. A woman I recognized from Mom's church group shook her head, her lips tight. My brother's friend from the bank lingered by the door, watching but saying nothing. I stepped forward, my voice cold. "You didn't need to know because you were too busy calling me a failure. A spinster. You think that's family?" He flinched, his hands balling into fists. "I was joking, Clara. You're blowing this out of proportion." But the crowd wasn't on his side. A man from their neighborhood muttered, "Doesn't sound like a joke to me." Another guest, an older woman with a pearl necklace, turned away, whispering to her friend. My brother's wife took another step back, her hand on her belly, her face a mix of betrayal and shame. Mom pushed through, her eyes wild. "Clara, you've gone too far. This was supposed to be a happy day." I met her gaze, unflinching. "Happy for who, Mom?" "For him, while you both treat me like I'm less than nothing." She opened her mouth, but no words came. My aunt, still holding her phone, stepped closer, her face grim. "I recorded it all," she said, her voice steady. "The slides show your speech, everything. People need to see this." I froze, the weight of her words sinking in. She was already tapping her screen, uploading the video to her social media, where her thousands of followers would see it. My brother's eyes widened. "You can't do that," he snapped, lunging toward her. My aunt didn't budge, her phone still in hand. "It's already done," she said, her tone final. "You don't get to hide from this." The guests were pulling out their phones now, some recording, others scrolling, the video already spreading. My brother's wife turned to him, her voice shaking. "You let me think we were fine on our own. You let me brag about our life, and it was all her." She gestured at me, tears spilling over. He reached for her, but she pulled away, shaking her head. "Don't," she said, and walked toward the back of the restaurant, leaving him stranded. The crowd's whispers grew louder, a wave of judgment crashing over my brother. A couple near the bar slipped out, their heads low, as if they couldn't stand to be near him. My best friend appeared at my side, her grin fierce. "They're eating him alive," she whispered. The guy from my shop nodded, his arms crossed. "He deserves it." I looked back at my brother, his shoulders slumped, his face a mix of anger and defeat. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I turned to Mom, who was clutching her purse like a lifeline. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady. "I've spent years keeping his life together, and all I got was your disappointment. No more." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't argue. "Clara, please," she whispered, but I shook my head. "I'm not your backup plan anymore. You chose him over me every time. That ends now." I turned to my brother, who was still trying to salvage his dignity. "And you," I said, my words sharp. "I'm done carrying you. Don't call me. Don't come to my shop. We're finished." He stared at me, his mouth working but no sound coming out. The guests were openly staring now, their phones lighting up with notifications as my aunt's video spread. My brother's friend from the bank approached, her expression soft but firm. "You did what you had to," she said to me. "He needed to face it." I nodded, grateful but exhausted. The weight of years, thousands of dollars, countless sleepless nights was finally off my shoulders, but it left me raw. My aunt tucked her phone away, her eyes bright with something like pride. "This is going viral," she said, her voice low. "By tomorrow, everyone in Des Moines will know what you did for him." I swallowed hard, the reality of it hitting me. The video wasn't just about him, it was about me, my sacrifice, my truth. Part of me wanted to stop it, to keep my life private, but another part knew it was too late. The truth was out, and it was reshaping everything. As I walked toward the parking lot, my best friend and the guy from my shop flanked me, their presence steadying. "You okay, my friend?" asked her voice gentle. I nodded, though my chest felt tight. "I will be," I said. The restaurant doors swung shut behind us, muffling the chaos inside. My phone buzzed notifications from my aunt's post, already racking up views. Comments were pouring in, some calling my brother out, others praising me. I silenced the phone, not ready to face the fallout yet. My brother's wife appeared at the edge of the lot, her face pale. She didn't approach, just stood there watching me. I held her gaze for a moment, then turned away. She'd figure out her next move, but it wasn't my job to fix their mess anymore. The air felt lighter, the weight of their expectations gone. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The next day, I was back at my shop feeling lighter. The familiar scent of fresh produce and the hum of customers browsing grounded me, a stark contrast to the chaos of yesterday's baby shower. My phone buzzed relentlessly, notifications from my aunt's, viral video texts from people I hadn't heard from in years, and a missed call from my brother's wife. I set the phone down, my resolve firm. I wasn't ready to hear her out, not after everything. The world knew the truth now, and I needed space to figure out what came next. My best friend walked in, her usual energy softened by concern. "You holding up okay?" she asked, leaning against the counter. I nodded, rearranging a stack of apples. "Better than I expected," I said, my voice quieter than usual. "It's like I can finally breathe." She smiled, nudging my shoulder. "You stood up for yourself. That's huge." The guy who helps at the shop appeared from the back, carrying a crate of tomatoes. "You're kind of a legend now," he said, grinning. "My buddy saw the video online. Said you're a hero." I rolled my eyes, but a small smile tugged at my lips. "I'm no hero. I just got tired of being invisible." My friend leaned closer, her voice low. "You're not invisible anymore. The whole town's talking about it." She wasn't wrong. My phone kept buzzing with messages, some supportive, others nosy. I ignored them all, focusing on the rhythm of the shop. This place, my place, had been my anchor through years of family drama. It felt like home more than Mom's house ever did. Later that afternoon, I was restocking shelves when my phone lit up with another call from my brother's wife. I stared at her name on the screen, my thumb hovering over the decline button. After a moment, I answered, my voice flat. "What do you want?" Her voice was heavy with regret, almost a whisper. "Clara, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. None of us did." I stayed silent, letting her words hang. She continued, stumbling over her thoughts. "I feel awful. You didn't deserve any of this. Can we talk? Please." I leaned against the counter, my chest tight. Part of me wanted to believe her, to bridge the gap, but the hurt ran too deep. "I appreciate that," I said finally. "But I'm not ready. I don't know if I'll ever be." There was a long pause, her breathing shaky on the other end. "I understand," she said softly. I hope someday you'll give me a chance." I ended the call without another word, my heart heavy, but certain. Some doors needed to stay closed, at least for now. That evening, my friend and the guy from the shop came over to my place. We sat on my porch. The Iowa sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. My friend sipped her iced tea, her feet propped up on a chair. "So what's the plan now?" she asked. I shrugged, cradling a mug of coffee. "Keep running the shop, maybe take a vacation." "I've never been to Colorado." The guy chuckled, tossing a bottle cap into the air. "You should. You've earned it." I smiled faintly, the idea of a fresh start settling in. As the weeks passed, the buzz around the video began to fade, but its impact lingered. My aunt texted me updates, local blogs had picked up the story, some calling me a quiet hero, others tearing into my brother. I didn't read most of it. The attention felt strange, like wearing someone else's clothes. My friend kept me grounded, dragging me to trivia nights at the local bar, while the guy from the shop started bringing me coffee every morning, a quiet gesture that meant more than he knew. They were my family now, not by blood but by choice, and that felt stronger than anything I'd lost. Looking back, I realized something simple but sharp. Family isn't just about blood, it's about respect. My brother and mom never saw me for who I was, only for who they wanted me to be. Their words, their dismissal, it all piled up until I couldn't carry it anymore. When I finally stood up, I didn't just break their illusions, I broke free. It cost me my family, but it gave me something better myself. The lesson wasn't easy, but it was clear. Respect holds a family together, and without it, the cracks will show. Insults, even the small ones, build up, and one day they can tear everything apart. I looked out at the sunset, ready for what's next.
You can't be serious, Juno. It's just electricity and water. Why are you being so cheap about this? Madeline's voice came through my phone with an accusatory edge that made me wince. Family helps family. You know I would do the same for you. Would you, though? I challenged, pacing across my apartment in Seattle. Because when I needed a place to stay during that conference last year, you said your guest room was being renovated. That was different, she countered. We actually were renovating. For 6 months? Look, it's not like you can't afford it. You're single with no kids and that tech job pays you ridiculous money. Meanwhile, I'm supporting a family of 5 on a teacher's salary. I took a deep breath. Madeline, it's not about affording it. The cabin costs me over $2,000 a month in mortgage, insurance, taxes, and regular maintenance. You're asking to use it for 3 weeks without contributing anything. It's sitting empty anyway, she exclaimed. What difference does it make if we're there or not? The bills still exist. You're seriously going to nickel and dime your own sister. My name is Juno Reynolds, 29 years old, and the proud owner of a cabin on Lake Chelan in Washington State. I purchased it last year after saving for nearly a decade, a personal achievement I'm immensely proud of. What I want is simple: to enjoy my vacation property on my terms and to have my boundaries respected by my family. Standing in my way is my older sister Madeline, who seems to believe that my possessions are community property, particularly when it benefits her. I'm not nickel and diming you, I said firmly. I'm asking you to contribute to the utilities you'll be using. That's completely reasonable. Mom and Dad think you're being ridiculous too, Madeline replied, playing her trump card. That gave me pause. You've already talked to them about this? Of course I have. They agree that this isn't how family treats family. I felt a familiar knot forming in my stomach. Madeline had always been expert at rallying our parents to her side in any dispute. As the oldest, with 3 kids and a perpetually tight budget, she had perfected the art of positioning herself as the struggling underdog, worthy of everyone's support and accommodation. We'll talk more later, I said, not wanting to escalate things further without collecting my thoughts. I need to get back to work. Fine, she huffed, but this conversation isn't over. After hanging up, I checked my email and felt my heart sink. There was a message from my property management company about the cabin, with the subject line, Urgent Water Damage Report. Apparently there had been a small leak in the utility room during the last heavy rain. Nothing catastrophic, but it would need immediate repair. The estimate attached was for $3,500, money I hadn't budgeted for this month. As I stared at the figure, I couldn't help but think about Madeline's demand that I foot the bill for her 3-week family vacation, while also covering unexpected expenses like this. Something had to give, and for once, it wasn't going to be me. Growing up as the youngest of 4 siblings in a middle-class household in Washington State taught me the importance of both self-reliance and resourcefulness. Our parents, while loving, had stretched finances with multiple children, so I learned early to save for what I wanted and work for what I needed. By 16, I had 3 jobs: bagging groceries after school, tutoring on weekends, and mowing lawns in the summer. Every dollar went into my someday fund. Madeline took a different path. 5 years my senior, She married young to her high school boyfriend Louis, had 3 kids in quick succession, and settled into the role of struggling but virtuous mother. She was a dedicated elementary school teacher, and I genuinely admired her commitment to education and her children. But there had always been an assumption that her choices were somehow more noble than mine, and therefore more deserving of family support. Juno's doing great, our mother would say, but Madeline is raising the next generation. That's the real work. So it became a pattern. Madeline needed help with childcare, so I would drive 2 hours on weekends to babysit. Madeline's car broke down, so our parents lent her money they could ill afford. Madeline wanted family photos, so I, with my expensive camera hobby, was expected to provide professional quality portraits for free. I never minded helping. Not really. Family matters to me. But the reciprocity that should exist between siblings never materialized. When I needed anything, there was always a reason why Madeline couldn't help. The kids were sick, Louis was working overtime, they were just so stretched thin right now. The cabin represented my breaking free from this dynamic. I had saved diligently for years, working overtime and investing carefully. When I found the property on Lake Chelan, a modest 2-bedroom with a stunning view of the water, I knew it was meant to be mine. My siblings had reacted with varying degrees of enthusiasm when I announced the purchase. "That's awesome," my brother Jason had said sincerely. "Seems excessive for one person," my sister Grace had remarked. "I can't wait to visit," Madeline had exclaimed, already making plans. I hadn't thought much about that last comment at the time. Of course my family would visit occasionally. I wanted to share the joy of this special place with them. What I hadn't anticipated was Madeline's assumption that my second home would become her family's free vacation spot whenever they wanted it. The first time she asked, I happily agreed. It was winter break, and they stayed for 5 days. When they left, I discovered broken dishes, stained towels, and heating bills triple the usual amount. Madeline brushed off my concerns. Kids will be kids. And it's just stuff, Juno. The second time, I hesitated, but eventually said yes. The pattern repeated. Messes left. Costs incurred. No acknowledgement of the imposition. Now, facing her third request, this time for a full 3 weeks in the height of summer, something in me balked. I loved my sister, but a growing suspicion had taken root that her version of family helps family only flowed in one direction. The next evening, my parents called. I knew exactly what it was about before I even answered. "Juno, honey," my mother began in that placating tone she reserved for family disputes. "We need to talk about this situation with Madeline and the cabin." I sighed. "Mom, I'm just asking her to contribute to the utilities while they're there. It's not unreasonable." "She says you're asking for rent," my father chimed in, his voice tinged with disapproval. "I'm not," I clarified. "I'm asking her to cover the utilities they'll use during their 3-week stay. The electric bill alone will be substantial with 5 people running the air conditioning in July." "But you'd be paying those bills whether they were there or not," my mother countered, echoing Madeline's argument. "That's not true," I explained patiently. "The baseline costs are low when no one's there. It's the usage that drives up the bills." There was a pause. Then my father spoke again. "Juno, we raised you to be generous with family. Madeline doesn't have the financial flexibility you do. Her kids have been looking forward to this vacation for months." The implication was clear. I was being selfish, prioritizing money over my nieces' and nephews' happiness. "I understand that," I said, trying to keep frustration from creeping into my voice. "But I just got hit with a $3,500 repair bill for water damage at the cabin. I have financial limitations too." "Well," my mother said, her tone shifting to something almost conspiratorial. "Madeline did mention she thought you might try to use money problems as an excuse. She showed us your Instagram post about your new paddle boards." I felt a flash of heat rise to my face. Yes, I had purchased 2 paddle boards last month, on sale, with money I had specifically saved for cabin recreation equipment. That Madeline had used this against me, presenting it to our parents as evidence of frivolous spending while I cried poor, felt like a betrayal. I'm not using money as an excuse, I said firmly. I'm setting a reasonable boundary. Family shouldn't have boundaries like that, my father replied. When you were in college, did we charge you rent during summer breaks? No, but... And when you needed help with the down payment for your first apartment, who lent you the security deposit? My mother added. You did, and I paid it back with interest, I reminded her. That's not the point, she dismissed. The point is family helps family. As the conversation continued, a sinking feeling grew in my stomach. This wasn't just about the cabin anymore. It was about a fundamental disagreement on what family obligation meant. In their view, my success obligated me to subsidize Madeline's choices without question or limit. The final blow came as we were hanging up. By the way, my mother added casually, Madeline already told the kids they're going to the cabin. They're so excited about swimming in the lake. It would be cruel to disappoint them now. I sat in stunned silence after the call ended. My sister had backed me into a corner, using my nieces and nephews as emotional leverage. She'd already promised them the vacation, knowing I'd be positioned as the villain if I refused. Worse, I'd just received a text from my brother Jason. Heads up, Madeline's been in the family group chat, the one you're not in, asking if anyone wants to join them at your cabin for the 4th of July weekend. She's inviting extended family too. A group chat I wasn't included in? Extended family I hadn't approved? This had gone beyond taking advantage. This was Madeline actively undermining my ownership, treating my property as a communal resource she controlled. For the first time, I allowed myself to acknowledge what I'd long suspected. This pattern wouldn't change unless I forced it to. The question was how to stand my ground without fracturing the family entirely. The next morning, I called Madeline directly, determined to address the situation head-on. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice cautious. Hey, Juno. If this is about the cabin, Mom and Dad already talked to me about your financial concerns. I took a breath, centering myself. Actually, I'm calling because Jason told me you've been inviting extended family to my cabin without asking me. A pause. It's just Aunt Patty and Uncle Dave. They haven't had a proper vacation in years, and I thought, that's not your decision to make, I interrupted. The cabin is my property, Madeline. You need to ask me before inviting anyone else. Why are you being so possessive? She shot back. It's just family. It's not about being possessive, it's about respect. And speaking of respect, Jason also mentioned a family group chat that I'm not part of. Another pause, longer this time. Oh, that. It's nothing personal. Just a chat for coordinating kid stuff. You don't have children, so we didn't think you'd be interested. The explanation felt hollow, especially given what Jason had revealed about the chat's content. But I decided to focus on the immediate issue. Look, I've given this a lot of thought. I'm happy for your family to use the cabin, but there need to be some ground rules. First, you'll need to cover the utilities during your stay. Second, no inviting additional guests without my permission. And third, I'll need you to put down a security deposit to cover any potential damages. Madeline's laugh was sharp and disbelieving. A security deposit? Are you kidding me? We're not some random renters off the street. We're family. Family who left broken dishes and stained towels the last 2 times, I pointed out. Accidents happen. You're seriously going to nickel and dime your own nieces and nephews? I'm asking for basic respect for my property, I countered. This is non-negotiable, Madeline. Either agree to these terms or find somewhere else to stay for your vacation. There was a moment of stunned silence, then Madeline's voice turned cold. You know what? Fine. I'll work out the details with you, but I want you to know that this is incredibly hurtful. I would never treat you this way. I bit back the retort that she had never been in a position to offer me anything comparable. I'll email you the details, I said instead, keeping my tone neutral. After hanging up, I felt a strange mixture of guilt and liberation. Standing up to Madeline wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. I spent the afternoon drafting a straightforward agreement outlining my expectations. a utility fee based on average increased costs during occupancy, a reasonable deposit to be returned after inspection, and clear guidelines about additional guests and property care. The email was factual and businesslike, with no emotional language. I hesitated before hitting send, wondering if I was overreacting. Then I remembered the water damage bill, the stained towels, the broken dishes, and the years of one-sided family helps family expectations. I pressed send. Madeline's response came within minutes. "Is this a joke? You're sending me a rental agreement for a family visit? I can't believe you're being this petty. Wait until Mom and Dad see this." I had anticipated this reaction, but still felt my stomach clench. The next salvo came just an hour later, a group text from my mother to all 4 siblings. "Family dinner this Sunday at our house, 5 p.m. Everyone must attend. We need to discuss some concerning developments." My brother Jason texted me privately right after. Madeline showed them the agreement. "They're furious. Dad called it a disgraceful way to treat family. Just giving you a heads up." My sister Grace chimed in with her own private message. "Standing your ground, huh? About time. I'll back you up on Sunday, but brace yourself. It's going to be ugly." I felt a flicker of hope at Grace's support. Maybe I wasn't alone in feeling the imbalance in our family dynamics. Still, the prospect of Sunday's confrontation filled me with dread. I'd challenged the established order. Madeline asks, everyone accommodates. And the backlash would be significant. That night, as I reviewed my property insurance policy to ensure the water damage repair would be covered, I received one more text from Louis, Madeline's husband. "Madeline's really upset about this cabin thing. She's been crying all evening. I know you two have your issues, but the kids are devastated about possibly missing their lake vacation. Can't you work something out? For the kids' sake?" Emotional manipulation from yet another angle. I turned off my phone without responding, more certain than ever that I needed to hold firm. Sunday arrived with the weight of impending confrontation. I spent the morning hiking to clear my head, then drove to my parents' suburban Olympia home with a strange calm. Whatever happened, I wouldn't back down on this issue. It was too important, not just for my finances, but for resetting long-established patterns in our family. When I arrived, the tension was palpable. My father gave me a curt nod, my mother a tight-lipped smile. Madeline wouldn't meet my eyes. Only Jason and Grace greeted me normally, with Jason offering a subtle thumbs-up of encouragement. Dinner was a painfully quiet affair, with conversation limited to safe topics like the weather and my nephew's baseball team. It wasn't until dessert that my father cleared his throat and addressed the elephant in the room. "We need to talk about this cabin situation," he announced. "Madeline showed us the contract you sent her." He practically spat the word contract as if it were obscene. "It's a standard agreement," I replied calmly. "Nothing unreasonable." "It's cold and formal," my mother interjected. "This is your sister, not some stranger from the internet." "That's exactly why I need clear boundaries," I explained. "Because our history makes this complicated." "Boundaries?" Madeline finally spoke, her voice trembling with either genuine or performative emotion. I couldn't tell which. "Since when does family need formal boundaries? We've always helped each other." I took a deep breath. Have we? Have we really helped each other equally? An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. "What's that supposed to mean?" my father asked. "It means," I said carefully, "that family helps family has mostly meant everyone accommodating Madeline, with little reciprocity." "That's not fair," Madeline protested. "I have 3 children and a teacher's salary. You're single with a tech job." "And I've worked extremely hard for everything I have," I countered, "including that cabin which represents years of saving and sacrifice." My mother shook her head. "No one's denying your hard work, Juno. But surely you can see that Madeline's needs are greater than mine," I finished. "That's always the assumption, isn't it? That because I don't have children, my needs, my boundaries, my property are somehow less important?" Before anyone could respond, Grace unexpectedly spoke up. "Juno's right. All eyes turned to her in surprise. "I've never said anything because I didn't want to cause problems," she continued. "But Madeline, you do take advantage. You borrowed my car for just a weekend last year and kept it for 2 weeks. You've asked me to watch your kids at the last minute dozens of times, but when I needed help moving, you were too busy." Madeline looked genuinely shocked. That's not true." "It is," Jason added quietly. "You've done the same to me. Remember when you borrowed my camping equipment for your family trip and returned it damaged? You never offered to pay for repairs." I hadn't expected this show of solidarity from my siblings. The family dynamics I'd thought were invisible to everyone but me were apparently obvious to Jason and Grace as well. My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. Then, in a moment that truly stunned me, my father turned to Madeline and asked, "Is this true?" "Of course not. They're ganging up on me because—" Madeline trailed off, unable to complete the accusation. My mother, looking troubled, reached for her phone. After a moment of scrolling, she looked up with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of disappointment and realization. "Madeline, I just checked our joint calendar. In the past year, we've watched your children 27 times. We've lent you money on 8 occasions. We've helped you move, repair your car, and even paid your electric bill when it was past due." She paused. "How many times have you helped your siblings or us in that same period?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. I have children," Madeline repeated weakly. "It's different." "Is it?" my father asked, his voice softer now. "We raised all 4 of you to support each other. But support should go both ways, shouldn't it?" I sat back, processing this unexpected shift. For the first time, my parents were seeing the imbalance that had defined our family relationships for years. And judging by Madeline's expression, a mixture of defensiveness and dawning awareness, she was seeing it too. The conversation had taken a turn I never could have predicted. This wasn't just about my cabin anymore. It was about a fundamental re-examination of how our family functioned, and who bore the burdens of family helps family. The week following the family dinner passed in tense silence. No one called me, not even Jason or Grace. I wondered if their moment of solidarity had dissolved under pressure from our parents or Madeline, who had stormed out of the dinner in tears after being confronted with the reality of her one-sided expectations. I went about my routine, working, visiting the cabin to supervise the water damage repairs, and trying not to obsess over the family conflict. I stood by my decision to require the agreement, but I couldn't help questioning whether I should have approached the situation differently. Had I been too harsh? Too businesslike? By Friday, I still hadn't heard from Madeline regarding the cabin. July was approaching rapidly, and I needed to know whether to block off those 3 weeks on my calendar or make my own plans for the property. I decided to text her directly. "Madeline, I need to know if you still want to use the cabin in July. If so, we need to finalize the agreement. If not, that's fine. Just let me know so I can make other arrangements." No response. On Saturday morning, I was at the cabin overseeing the installation of a new water heater when my phone rang. It was my mother. "Juno," she began, her voice carefully neutral. "We've been talking as a family about this situation, and we'd like to have another meeting tomorrow. Would you be willing to come?" "Is this an ambush?" I asked cautiously. "No," she assured me. "It's a genuine attempt to work things out. Your father and I have been doing some reflecting and, well, we'd like everyone to talk openly." I agreed, with some trepidation. That night, I prepared myself mentally for various scenarios, from capitulation to confrontation. Whatever happened, I was committed to maintaining my boundaries while remaining open to reasonable compromise. The next day, I arrived at my parents' house to find everyone already gathered. My parents, Jason, Grace, and Madeline, who looked subdued but not hostile. Louis was notably absent. "Thank you for coming," my father began once we were all seated. We've been having some difficult conversations this week about family dynamics and expectations. Madeline has something she'd like to say. Madeline looked up, her expression a mixture of embarrassment and resignation. I've been thinking about what everyone said last week. At first I was angry and hurt, but I've started to see that maybe I have been taking advantage. She paused. I'm not saying I've been doing it intentionally, but the pattern is there. I nodded, surprised and cautiously hopeful. About the cabin, she continued, I understand now why you wanted the agreement. It's your property and you have every right to set conditions for its use. Thank you for saying that, I replied sincerely. But, Madeline added, I still can't afford to pay what you're asking. The utility deposit and security deposit together are more than we've budgeted for our entire vacation. I was about to respond when my father interjected. That's where we wanted to propose a solution, he said. Your mother and I will cover the security deposit for Madeline's family. It seems fair since we've enabled some of these imbalanced expectations over the years. I considered this. That would help, but there's still the issue of property respect. The last 2 times they stayed, things were damaged and not reported. I've talked to Louis and the kids about that, Madeline said. We've agreed to be more careful and to replace or repair anything that gets damaged. It was a start, but words alone weren't enough after years of established patterns. I pulled out my tablet, where I'd prepared a simplified version of my original agreement. I've revised the terms, I explained. The utility fee is calculated based on actual historical increases, not estimates. The security deposit is lower, and I've added a detailed checkout list so there's no confusion about expectations. I passed the tablet around, watching as everyone reviewed the document. It was still a formal agreement, but with more reasonable terms and clearer explanations of the rationale behind each requirement. This seems fair, Grace commented. Actually, I'd like a copy of this for when I let people use my beach condo. Jason nodded. Same for my boat. It's good to have clear expectations. My mother looked thoughtful. I think we've all learned something important here about boundaries and respect within a family. Madeline took the tablet last, reading carefully. After a long moment, she looked up. I understand why you needed this now, and I apologize for how I've treated your property before. It wasn't a complete resolution. True change would take time and consistency, but it was a significant step forward. As we continued talking, a new complication emerged. Madeline hadn't told Louis or the children about the uncertainty of their vacation plans. They were still fully expecting to use the cabin, with Louis having already requested the time off work. I was hoping it would all just work out, Madeline admitted. This revelation threatened to undermine our progress. I had to decide. Stand absolutely firm on the principle, potentially punishing the children for their mother's poor planning, or find a workable compromise that maintained my boundaries, while allowing for a transition to the new expectations. 7 days after presenting Madeline with the formal rental agreement, I received a text message from her that simply read, "Can we talk about the cabin, in person?" I suggested meeting at a coffee shop near my apartment, neutral territory where we could speak privately. When Madeline arrived, I was struck by her demeanor, subdued and almost nervous, without her usual confidence. "Thank you for meeting me," she began, fidgeting with her coffee cup. "I want to talk about your terms for using the cabin." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. "At first, I was upset and angry about the agreement," she admitted. "It felt so impersonal. But after our family meeting and seeing how everyone, even Mom and Dad, agreed with you, I've been doing a lot of thinking." She pulled a folder from her bag and placed it on the table between us. "I've signed your agreement, all of it, the utility fees, the security deposit, the rules about additional guests, and I've also added something." Curious, I opened the folder. Inside was my agreement with her signature, along with a handwritten letter. "It's an apology," she explained as I began reading, "for taking advantage of your generosity, for not respecting your property, and for using the kids as emotional leverage. I've also included a check to cover the damages from our previous stays that I never properly addressed. I glanced at the check. $350, a fair estimate of the costs I'd absorbed from their earlier visits. This is unexpected, I said honestly. I talked to Louis and the kids, Madeline continued. We had a family meeting of our own. I explained that Aunt Juno's cabin isn't a free hotel, and that we need to treat it, and you, with more respect. The kids actually suggested doing chores around the property during our stay to help earn their keep. She looked at me directly, her expression sincere. I've never had to face the pattern of my behavior before. Everyone always accommodated me because of the kids, because we're always struggling financially. But that doesn't make it right to take advantage of my family, especially you. The shift was remarkable. Not just the acknowledgement of past behavior, but the concrete actions to change it. For the first time in our adult relationship, Madeline was treating me as an equal, whose boundaries deserved respect. Thank you, I said, feeling a complex mixture of vindication and reconciliation. I appreciate this, Madeline. Truly. Madeline's family did use the cabin that July. The difference in how they treated the property was immediately noticeable. Clean dishes, folded linens, a meticulously followed checkout procedure. My nieces and nephews had even left me a thank you card with a hand-drawn picture of the cabin. More significant than the state of the cabin, however, was the shift in our family dynamics. Our parents, now aware of the imbalance they had enabled, began setting their own boundaries. When Madeline asked them to watch the kids the following month, they declined because they had already made plans with Grace. It was a small change, but a meaningful one. At our Labor Day family barbecue, I overheard Madeline offer to help Jason move into his new apartment, volunteering without being asked. Later, she approached me with a tentative smile. I was wondering if we could work out a system for the cabin for next summer, she said. Maybe we could trade some weekends. You watch the kids one weekend, we get the cabin another. An actual exchange, not just you giving and me taking. I'd like that, I replied, surprised but pleased. My father, overhearing, nodded approvingly. The cabin situation ended up being good for all of us, he remarked. Made us take a hard look at some patterns we'd fallen into. My mother joined the conversation. I've been thinking about this family helps family idea, she admitted. It's supposed to mean everyone supporting each other in different ways, not one person always giving and others always taking. Grace raised her glass in a small toast. To healthy boundaries and real reciprocity. We all clinked glasses, even Madeline, who added quietly, and to Juno for having the courage to enforce them first. I smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the summer sun. Standing up for myself had been difficult and uncomfortable, but it had catalyzed an important transformation in our family. The cabin agreement had exposed underlying issues that everyone had felt but no one had addressed. As I looked around at my family, engaged in genuine give and take rather than one-sided expectations, I realized that true family support wasn't about unconditional accommodation. It was about mutual respect, clear boundaries, and balanced reciprocity. The cabin was still my private sanctuary, a symbol of my independence and achievement. But now it was also something more, the catalyst for a healthier, more equitable family dynamic that benefited everyone, including Madeline. Next time, Madeline said, interrupting my thoughts, we'll bring our own paddleboards. I laughed, recognizing her comment for what it was, an acknowledgement that enjoying my property didn't mean being entitled to everything in it. Or, I suggested, maybe we could go paddleboarding together sometime. Madeline smiled, a real smile with no hint of entitlement or expectation. I'd like that, she said. I really would.